Hello, and thank you for joining me. There are three things that we celebrate as sacred: story, self, and sleep. At the center of our celebration is self. In terms of sleep, it is about the absence of self, the genuine absence. In terms of story, it is about the central character, which we know as self. In meditation, it is important that we learn to sit with self, not as self. Self is fascinating because we are not born with it. The first impression version of it that we use most frequently, we might call personality, heavily informed by identity. And that formation begins very early in life, but we are not born knowing our name or our favorite football team. That is data we acquire as we make choices, as we choose how to react to what the world gives us. So, our identity is a response to intrinsic factors and environmental impacts. And as we make those choices, we feel a sense of who emerge. And that who that we are becomes self, integrated into the being that we are at birth. And through a series of trials and errors in response, this self becomes an authentic representation of the being that we essentially are. During sleep, we have a chance to be free of self. I don't sleep with an identity. I don't sleep needing to know the answer to the question, who am I? And the deeper I go into sleep, the less I'm able to remember, the less I dream, the less that I am aware of the experience of sleeping. And that break, that genuine break from self, is necessary. Self is a very effective tool and exists only for one reason, which makes its appreciation much easier. It exists to communicate from the being that we are, our social viability, because that is how we continue. That is the reason why the next generation exists. Self is our only social viability tool. And we can be effective if we understand that as we respond to the passing of time, we are placing a character into a narrative that tells the story of our social viability. And so self is sacred because we are the founders of it. It emerges from a very deep and calm place that is the origin of our essential origin being. We need to have a sense of how we might sit with self and not as self. Being alone with self is to not be alone or to experience loneliness. If we can accept that the essential being that we are in meditation can somehow be company for the self, then we are not essentially ever truly alone. And we start this by asking the question, who am I? A very powerful and simple mantra. Who am I? And as we repeat this question, as it cycles around in our awareness, self wants to be the answer. And we deny its claim. Self is very keen to always be in control because it needs social viability signals delivered to it constantly. But we say no to self by simply asking the question again, who am I? And then we can feel a sense that self is relaxing because the question is in search of the origin of self. And self needs to know that it is known, that it is observed, that it is witnessed. And in order for that to happen, in order for it to know that it is genuinely loved for all that it does, it must relax and let the essential being that we are have a moment of presence to break through the confusion of identity and personality and self and its desire to prove that the being is socially viable. And so we ask, who am I? And this is how to be with self, not to be as self. And slowly we feel a separation emerge, a relaxing of self as it appears to move to one side, to dissolve somehow. And what is left is a very deep and powerful calm that can feel very much as if it is connected to something greater and something essential. The expansive, joyous nowhere within. To be sacred, or to have a sense of it in the company of self, is to accept it for all that it does, to understand that it is a beautiful creation, and its celebration is all about you communicating to the next generation, directly or otherwise, the importance of an authentic self. And if we can learn to gain some perspective on self, then we are much more likely to accept it for all that that is good and that is bad about it, and make the necessary changes accordingly, somewhat like a sculptor might adjust the statue as it begins to take shape. And so I encourage you to sit with the beautiful and extraordinary creation that will be your greatest achievement, and we call it self. Sit with it, warts and all. Start that process by asking, who am I? You will feel that question wants to become, what am I? What is the essential being that I am? Allow that shift to occur, and then sense that self is free. It can be a very effective way to go into a deep and abiding calm